When I first moved into the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maple Ridge, I never imagined that one dinner with my neighbor would change everything. I believed about the people around me I'd chosen this place for its peaceful vibe and safe environment. As a single woman in her early 30s, I was looking for a fresh start after a tough breakup and a stressful job back in the city. My name is Emily Dawson, and this is the story of how one seemingly innocent evening turned into something I never saw coming. I had been living in the house for 3 months, mostly keeping to myself. The neighbors were kind, but not intrusive. A few had stopped by with baked goods or a quick hello, but I hadn't formed any close friendships. That was until I met Tyler Brooks. Tyler lived directly next door. He was in his late 30s, tall with salt and pepper hair, and had an approachable charm that made people instantly comfortable. He waved at me each morning, and we occasionally exchanged small talk when bringing in the mail or working in. There'd one Sunday afternoon he stopped by as I was pruning the small rose bush in front of my porch and asked if I liked Italian food. I laughed and said, "Who doesn't?" That's when he invited me over for dinner. The following Friday, hesitated for a second after all, I barely knew him. But something in his kind demeanor and warm smile reassured. He wasn't pushy or overly forward, just friendly. I agreed. Friday arrived, and I dressed casually, but nicely, trying not to overthink it. It wasn't a date, just dinner. I carried a bottle of red wine with me, figuring it would be a polite contribution. Tyler greeted me at the door wearing an apron over a plain shirt and jeans, and the smell of garlic and herbs wafted from the kitchen. I was impressed he had set. The table neatly soft jazz played in the background, and the atmosphere was cozy and inviting. We talked as he finished preparing pasta primavera and a fresh salad. He was funny, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. He asked about my job, my family, my reasons for moving. I told him about my life in Thessaly, my ex-boyfriend who had cheated on me, and my decision to start over. Somewhere new. Tyler listened without judgment, nodding thoughtfully and occasionally offering kind words. Dinner went smoothly, the wine flowed, and laughter became more frequent. Felt good to talk to someone like this again. As the evening wore on and dessert was served, homemade tiramisu. Surprisingly delicious. I noticed something shift in Tyler's demeanor. He became a little quieter, more thoughtful. Then he said, "Emily, I want to tell you something. It's probably not what you'd expect. And I don't normally share this with people I've just met, but I think you should know, because it might affect how you seem." I blinked, suddenly unsure of where this was going. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled. 4 years ago. I wasn't living here. I was in prison. The silence in the room was deafening. I stared at him, stunned. Prison. This charming, well-spoken neighbor had been an inmate. He noticed the expression on my face and quickly added, "Please let me explain before you jump to conclusions." I nodded slowly, unsure of what to think. "I was a financial advisor," he began. "Successful, respected. But I got caught up in something I never should have touched. A friend, someone I trusted, roped me into a deal that turned out to be fraudulent. At first, I didn't know the full extent of it. When I realized what was happening, I was already too deep. I made the wrong choice. I didn't report it. I stayed quiet." He paused, looking down at his hands. "I was arrested for fraud and obstructions. Spent 2 years in federal prison, lost everything, my job, my house, my reputation. But I used the time to reflect, to take responsibility. When I got out, I vowed to start over. I chose Maple Ridge because it felt like a place where I could begin again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to get up and leave. Another part felt sorry for him. He didn't seem dangerous. In fact, he seemed incredibly remorseful. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice quieter than before. "Because you're the first real friend I've made since moving here," he said. "And if this neighborhood ever finds out, I'd rather you hear it from Methan through some gossip chain." I looked at him for a long time. His eyes were sincere, his expression filled with both hope and fear. I realized then that this wasn't just about revealing his past. It was about trust, and he had trusted me with something deeply personal. I stayed for another hour. We didn't talk much more about prison, but the conversation shifted to broader topics. Books we liked, movies we hated, what we missed about childhood. I left that night feeling conflicted, but also deeply moved over the next few weeks. I found myself thinking about Tyler a lot. Googled his name expecting some dark secret to surface, but found only public court records confirming what he had said. No violence, no dangerous crimes, just a man who had made a very bad decision and paid dearly for it. We started spending more time together. Coffee on Saturday mornings, walks, and the park dinners. Now and then, he never pushed for anything romantic, though I started to feel something more than friendship growing between us. The more I got to know him, the more I respected him. He volunteered at the local food bank, helped elderly neighbors with their lawns, and even tutored kids in math at the library. But not everyone was soup-minded. One afternoon I was having lunch at the cafe downtown when I overheard two women talking in hushed tones. They were sitting at the next table and I couldn't help but hear my name, that new girl, Emily. "Have you seen how much time she spends with Tyler Brooks?" The other woman scoffed. If she knew what I knew, she wouldn't be going anywhere near him. My heart sank. It was happening. The gossip Tyler feared had started when I told him about it. He looked defeated. "It was bound to come out eventually," he said. "I just hoped people would see who I am now." I wanted to fight for him, to defend his name. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I organized a neighborhood potluck at my house. I invited everyone on the block and asked Tyler to help me host. First, people were hesitant, but once they saw how genuine Tyler was, how helpful and kind he acted, the ice began to thaw. He manned the grill, chatted with the kids, and even helped Mrs. Patterson carry her folding chairs back to her car. By the end of the night, neighbors who once avoided him were shaking his hand and thanking him for a lovely evening. Later, when the guests had left and we were cleaning up, Tyler looked at me and said, "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," I replied. "You deserve a chance." That night he kissed me for the first time. It was gentle, sincere, and full of the emotion he had been holding back for so long. Months passed, and Tyler became a respected part of the community. Slowly, the whispers faded. People saw who he was, not who he had been. One summer evening, as we sat on my porch watching the fireflies, he took my hand and said, "You know, Emily, that dinner changed everything for me." I thought revealing the truth would ruin any chance I had at friendship or love. But instead it brought me the most important person in my life. I squeezed his hand and smiled. It shook me too. I